Let's see how to use the white balance tool in Lightroom's Develop module. And I'm going to start off by saying that this ability to correct white balance is really most relevant if you're shooting the RAW file format. If you're shooting JPEGs, you just don't get the control over the white balance that you do with RAW files. Okay, so we're in the Develop module here. I have a picture in front of me that has a little bit of a white balance problem. I was photographing in a factory and I had set my camera incorrectly, so the white balance is off. There are a couple ways we can get this white balance right. I'm over here now in the basic pane where it says WB for white balance, and right now the setting for the white balance is as shot. In other words, it's using whatever my camera set to determine the white balance. And I can see that there's a tint, a heavy yellow tint to the image, which is a clue that I had set the white balance setting wrong on the camera. The first thing I do, this is the way I handle white balance, is I start and I click on the pop-up menu here and I move my way down through the different settings. A lot of times the auto white balance setting, which mimics the auto white balance setting on your camera, really does a good job and gets you to the place where you want to be. But I like to just go through and just see what the other presets do, just to get an idea of the range of white balance settings. Tungsten came pretty close, fluorescence way off, flash should be very similar to daylight, and then custom. We haven't done a custom one yet. So let's start back here at as shot, and I was somewhat happy with the auto setting, but let me use this opportunity to show you how to create a custom white balance setting. And for that, you're going to need to grab this white balance selection tool. You just click on it, and it now appears as an eyedropper. And we're looking on the image itself is a neutral area, not a white area, but a neutral area. And there's a lot of hints on what you can do and ways that Lightroom helps you make that selection. First of all, I want you to notice that over on the left in the navigator window, as I move my cursor of the eyedropper tool around and find different targets, the preview in the navigator window will reflect what it will look like if I actually make that selection. So this is a rough way of getting an idea of what it's going to look like when you click. But getting back to the idea of picking a neutral target, you can see my grid. It shows me a close-up of the area where the tip of the eyedropper is placed, which is handy. But more importantly, at the very bottom, you see a percentage of RGB, or red, green, blue values. And this is a clue to finding the most neutral area that you can in the image. And what you're looking for are percentage values, not too high. You don't want like 100% values like this, because that's not going to work. But the neutral values that are more in the 50% range, maybe a little less, and as close to equal values per channel as possible. So you can see right now that red's 48, green's 44, blue's 30. So that is not going to give me the best target. And that's reflected over here on the left in the navigator window as well. So let me just find that the values are a bit closer. I might have better luck up here in the facial area. It does get a little bit dark for my target, maybe up here. Okay, now we have something that's getting closer in the range, and I can see from the preview that, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. So I'm going to click there. The values are, it's a little high. Let me bring those values closer together. All right, so this is the first attempt at getting a white balance correct. It's not perfect. Let me say I want to try again. I could go over here and I could click on the tool and select it. I want to give you a keyboard command that will make your life a lot easier. Just hit the W key, and that'll bring the tool back up, and you don't have to spend time going over and grabbing it. It'll disappear once you've made your click anyway. I think this is going to be a little better. Okay, there. Now, if I'm not completely satisfied with this final white balance setting, I can come over and fine-tune it with the temperature and the tint sliders. So I may slightly warm it up by moving the temperature slider over a little bit. I'm going to emphasize something here. There's no perfect white balance. Even if you do everything with a gray card, and we'll get to that in a minute, and you have everything precise as can be, at the end of the day, there's still a subjective aspect to picking a correct white balance. You need to decide what you want with that image. So in this case, I do want to warm it up just a hair, not as much as it was, just slightly by moving that temperature slider over. I don't want to fiddle with the tint slider. Well, I will, just to show you, but that's to the green, to the magenta. Double click on it, bring it back to neutral. I'm not going to do anything with that in this case. Some images, that's just the only way to get the color to look right. But I always start with the temperature slider after I've done my gross white balance setting. Okay, so once you have this white balance in place for this image, if you've shot other images that are shot in the same lighting conditions, I can apply the same white balance setting to a similar image that was shot in the same lighting conditions. I'm going to need to enlarge this film strip a little bit. You can see this picture on the left. It was shot at around the same time. If I hold down the Shift key and click on it in the film strip, it's now selected, and you can see over here at the bottom in the right panel, Sync appears. If I select Sync now, all the settings from the work I did on the previous image will be applied. But in this case, I don't want anything but the white balance, so I'll select that, and I'll synchronize. And so now just the white balance settings are coming over and being applied to this image here. I could have had one picture selected here, or I could have had 20. And if I select Sync, then it would have applied all those settings to all the selected images. Okay, here's something else that you should note. This little switch you see here, if I turn that switch up, now auto sync appears when there's more than one image selected. What that means is, let me show you. As I work on this image, let's just play with the white balance. You can see in real time, it's automatically syncing the settings to this image or to all the images that are selected. Okay, so that's auto sync, and then back here is just regular sync. You understand the difference. Sync alone, you have to manually click on it, and then it will apply the settings. Auto sync, it's in real time updating. So that's the white balance tool in a nutshell. You can also, if you want, make a preset appear in the left panel with that particular white balance setting, and then that will show up in your library module, and you can apply your white balance settings to as many images you want there. Or one last way is just to copy the white balance settings by clicking on copy on the left panel and then pasting the settings to multiple images. Many ways to get a white balance in the ballpark and then apply that white balance setting to multiple images. In another video, I'll show you how to use a gray card in your photographs to get the correct white balance.